Hi, welcome. Yeah, nice to have you here. We're just waiting 1 or 2 more minutes to see if there are more students joining. But yeah, maybe just to already briefly explain. So hi, I'm Lea. I'm the sustainability manager at Mud Jeans. Usually it's also our CEO, Bert, joining, but he couldn't make it today, so it's just me. But yeah, the way it typically works is we just do a very quick introduction round, just say who you are, why you're here, and then we just alternate with questions. So if it's just the two of you, then yeah, we just go one by one, and I try to answer as well as I can. Yeah, so maybe we already start with a short introduction. I can only see Sivet.
Cindy. Okay,
Sorry,
I will.
what's your name?
Cindy.
Okay.
You hear me? Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Cindy Vetter. I'm studying in my last semester in Germany economics at the University of Würzburg, and now I'm writing my master thesis on the topic business model design and market performance of digital circular economy firms. And a part of the thesis is to find suitable companies to have an interview with them and to just have some questions for them to check if it's like the same in business practice like it is in academic literature. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm
Interesting.
happy to have an interview today with you.
Lovely. Yeah, and Lisa?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, Lisa Terry, also from Germany originally, but living in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, in Abu Dhabi. I'm working here for the last 8 years as a sustainability manager, but also doing my studies at the same time, which is, I don't know, not the wisest thing maybe. But basically, I'm looking into how embedding of post-consumer waste can advance circular economy strategies and achieving sustainable development. So looking into the wider context of climate change. And I'm studying at the SOAS University of London in the Masters of International Sustainable Development. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting. Yeah, funny, I'm also originally from Germany, so technically we could do it in German, but we record it also to share with others. So let's keep the English maybe.
Awesome. Can we also have the recording of it? Awesome.
Yeah, we typically upload it on, well, you can either check through info@mudjeans.eu. So just our normal info email, they can send it to you, or you can check latest by tomorrow, probably on our YouTube.
Amazing. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Thanks. That's great.
Sure. All right, Cindy, do you want to start off?
Okay, just some general questions. Does your firm commit to corporate social responsibility in its culture, like a sustainability report I saw it? And if yes, in which way? And yeah, if not, why not? But I think you do.
Yeah, so the question was just if we, I didn't catch the first part.
Commit to corporate social responsibility.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would say so, yeah. Do you need a further description of how, or just?
Yeah, just a little bit. Like you take back the old jeans and then.
Yeah, I mean, if you're aware with our overall business model, we take back our old jeans, but we also use sustainable materials in the original production. So that includes the recycled cotton, the post-consumer recycled cotton, but also organic cotton, and in some cases now also hemp. And the whole production process is also made as sustainable as possible. So yeah, energy saving techniques, water saving techniques, such as foam dyeing or water recycling. And yeah, we report on this in our sustainability report, also in our LCA report, which is life cycle analysis report. So where we report on the specific environmental impact of the products. And yeah, many other ways, but yeah, I think that's maybe a good introduction.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Lisa.
Awesome. Okay. Right. So your sustainability report is great. And I like, first of all, is there a reason there's only the 2021 version online? Is that like you're
so
still busy?
Long story short, we're a small team. We have limited resources. The report is done, but the graphic design of it is not. So yeah, so we're waiting on that, but it's in the pipeline. It's there. It's just not public yet.
Okay, cool, awesome. Okay, so in terms of your sustainability report, so obviously what comes out is that you really strongly obviously focus on circularity, right? You want to drive a circular business. Is there any, how did you define that? Like, was that in the vision straight away for the business? Is there any other aspects of like an ESG agenda you're looking at? Did you define your materiality or your material value for the business before you started or embarked on that journey? Is that something you maybe went through a process, or is that just something where, it's just, in the belief of, the CEO, the founder, whatever, to kind of know, circularity is what I want to do, rather than assessing it before doing it?
Yeah, I would say the overall mission or ethos there of Mod Jeans is quite simple, actually. It's not, we don't, at the time at least, to come up with a broad idea, I don't think you really need a materiality assessment to know that you should be taking responsibility for the product you make, So we wanted to, first of all, design it in a way that it can be recyclable. So there we sat with our producers, but also our recyclers, and looked at, and also our designers, to see how can we design the product in a way that makes it as recyclable as possible. And then beyond that, it was just about, of course, sticking as much as possible to natural materials, and then just taking them back. So taking them back and making sure that they are recycled and reused in our product again. So the idea in that sense is simple. Sadly, it's still not that easy for the mainstream industry to implement, because it sounds maybe simpler than it is, especially if you already are built on a linear model. But yeah, I mean, the overall idea is simple: stick to natural materials, try to make it recyclable, and then actually take it back and recycle it.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. To what extent have circular economy approaches influenced your industry by now? Like, for example, emerge of new business models, or supply chain, green supply chain, or new products or service systems?
So how has the circular economy in general influenced the industry?
Yeah, by how far is it implemented in the industry? Like,
how far is it implemented? I see. Not enough, definitely not enough. You do see more and more businesses pop up that focus around that buzzword of circularity, but only this morning I still read an article that kind of talks about the word also being misused or misinterpreted in contexts. And it's a buzzword at the moment, which is, of course, to a certain degree nice, but I think a lot of businesses still don't know how to properly implement that. So we're definitely not there. We're still one of the very, very, very few companies that actually take back their materials, their products after use, and then use that to make their product again. It's unfortunately still very unique. So I would say, yeah, at this point, it's not implemented enough. I think that's the quick assessment of that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. In terms of on that circularity, I think you talked about already, it's not there yet. What do you think are the biggest blockers of, which prevent us from a more circular fashion industry? And I'm thinking just to kind of like, I don't know, just, yeah, thinking about like maybe legislation in terms of like, is there enough enabling legislation around? Is it maybe the consumers as well, where you think maybe there's not enough maturity or interest there? Cost, feasibility, geographic location, maybe in terms of like where the buyers sit. I'm just like giving a few like props, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, just would interest me from your side. What do you think are the biggest blockers from your, from your perspective?
There's a lot, I think, that come to mind for me. I think one biggest one of the bigger ones, definitely legislation. There has so far, I want to say, been a lack of that. We do see progress there, especially in the EU now with extended producer responsibility laws coming up. But also there, I want to say, yeah, let's wait and see how they actually turn out, because at least with, for example, the Dutch way of working, it's you pay a fee for the amount of products you put on the market, but it's not actually a closed loop back to your own production, or even that you personally take care of that in some way. It's definitely a better system. It's proven successful in other countries, but yeah. So lack of legislation, one point, we're getting there, but it's not there yet, I would say. Then I think a big one is, I'm lacking the keyword now, but basically many of the big businesses that are successful now, or let's say probably all of them, are based on a linear business model. And once you are a huge company with an established way of working, I do think it's a lot, yeah, it's very hard to revert back to a circular business model from that, because your whole system is functioning in a linear way, and you can't just snap the finger and say, okay, we're circular now. So I think it's a mix of it being hard and then legislation not being strict enough to force that at the same time. Beyond that, I think it's also, if you take those things away, it's also just a lot of effort on cost. So for us, for example, reverse logistics, so taking back the jeans, the shipping of those, that's a big cost for us. So because at the moment, the way it works for us is we provide the customer with a free return label so that they can send it to us. I don't think it would be as successful if the customer had to pay for it, of course.
Is that internationally, that return label free, or is that just in the EU? Or
it's in our free shipping zone, which is mainly, let's say, EU. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, it's quite a substantial cost to take those jeans back. Yeah, I'm gonna say those are maybe the top three reasons at the moment. So cost in general, and then another one, maybe also if you look at not just recycling, but circularity or circular fashion industry as a whole, if you look at things like repair, just the fact that it's as expensive to get your item repaired as it is to buy a new one, just there isn't enough incentive to be circular, I think, both for the businesses, but also for the individual.
I guess that's how the way you put it, it's not enough incentive.
Yeah.
Do you think there is, in the consumer mind, there's a problem, like it's not happening in the consumer mind to be circular? Is also a block?
I think it depends. So within a certain consumer group, I think the awareness is there, but like I said, the incentive is not quite there. It's hard, it's expensive to be circular at the moment. And then of course there's also a part of the consumer population that isn't aware maybe yet of what circularity exactly means. And I think also that greenwashing companies have a role to play there, because they make it sound very simple and use these words interchangeably and throw them about. And this way, you can't expect every customer to be a sustainability scientist and look behind all of these claims and read into them. So there's a lot of misleading going on, and that's definitely not helping the cause.
Okay. Which specific adjustment did you make to implement circular economy solutions?
Well, for us, it wasn't as much of an adjustment because it's based on, we're already based on a circular business model. But just to maybe highlight the key points of what makes a circular, have a circular business model. So like I said, we take back the jeans once the customer no longer wears them through the reverse logistics. We take those back, and so we collect them here in the Netherlands. We then send them to a recycler in Spain or in Turkey, and And then from there, this is mixed with organic cotton in most cases, sometimes also with hemp. And a new fabric is made from that. So step one is the business model as a whole. So making sure we take back the product once it's no longer worn. Another step is the design of the product. So like I said, making sure that it's designed in a circular way. And then also there are certain circular production practices that you can apply throughout the supply chain. So things like water recycling, for example.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds so good. Awesome. Right. So I think we talked about the blockers, and then I think something I'm really interested in. Okay, this might be a bit, I don't know, maybe a bit harder to think about, or maybe you have like an answer straight away for it. What do you consider the biggest enablers? I know that obviously the blockers are, you know, really, you know, super, you know, we probably all aware around literature and like the market. You are one of the first. There are not a lot of businesses around, but if you think about enablers, what makes you do what you do other than just being, you know, like you are sustainably born, that's your business model? In terms of like, is there any incentivization you're getting from the Netherlands, for example, from the country, from the EU? Is there anything which you kind of getting support outside of the business? Is there anything which would help you in terms of like you talked about it's costly, but is there anything which would also play in your commercial feasibility in terms of like your circularity? You know, what enables you to do what you do? To know, does that make sense?
No, question is clear. I think so. I want to differentiate between what enables us and what would enable the overall industry, because I do think that's two different things. So there are certain things that help us, but independently from that, yeah, I think you can't rely on, again, the mainstream adapting something for the same reasons that we do. So when it comes to the industry overall, clear enablers for me are legislation. That's like the number one thing. We always hope that good conscience alone can achieve something, but it's just not feasible. That's not how the economy works. That's not how the fashion industry works. So there needs to be just legislation in place. There needs to be, through legislation, economic incentive to become circular. So that's the number one thing there. Then when it comes to us specifically, yeah, there is certain elements also that are enablers for us. I think, you know, just looking at specific circular grants, there's definitely more and more of those coming into place. So if we have a certain project that we want to work on, there are ways for us to get those funded, because there is more funding coming in this area, I think. Yeah, apart from that, they are few, but when it comes to, you know, our partners, our investors, the ones we work with are true enablers, because we work with partners that, yeah, how do I explain that? That are focused more on sustainability than short-term return of investment. So I think if you have the right partners there, that's definitely also a huge enabler. Yeah, apart from that, also, if you look at increasing prices of materials such as organic cotton, using recycled cotton in that case makes you a bit more independent from those price fluctuations and from those price increases. So especially once legislation and improved technology makes recycled cotton even more, even cheaper, I think then it can also be an economic enabler to use recycled cotton over virgin materials.
When you talked about partners and investors, is that private sector companies? Is that like public entities, NGOs? Like on what? Like, I mean, not, you know, just in terms of like how would you describe the grouping of them?
It's more kind of, yeah, I like the economic terminology here again, but it's kind of like sustainable innovation funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. Which impact do established circular economy solutions have on the firm performance, on the financial firm performance development, like profitability, revenue streams, cost structure?
So I think, where do I start? Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely more costly. We have a lower margin than other brands do. I mean, that also plays a role with wanting to pay our partners fairly, I think, not just with circularity. So I think a mixture of having circular practices and believing in fair pricing results in lower margins. So in that sense, it's definitely not easy. But when it comes to long term, I think, like I said, relying less on virgin materials means that you will have a more resilient business model moving forward. And also having implemented all of these circular practices already that will be sooner or later required through these upcoming legislations definitely also gives us a benefit there, because we see a lot of companies now scrambling to become compliant with all of these. Whereas for us, this is already the case. So I think it's a good position to be ahead of these legislations and to be independent, or more independent of virgin materials than others are.
Okay.
Right. In terms of like the consumer readiness, is there any interaction you have with your consumers through, like, I don't know, any questionnaires, surveys? Did you try to understand if there's a growing interest around specific measures around sustainability or sustainable interventions? Or is that just something, you know, like you just do it because, you know, this is, you're circular born? I would say that my jeans is circular born, and think how you described it. Or is that something where you kind of like, you know, is there a bit of a feedback loop you seeking from your consumers at all to inform what you're going? Are you going down the right route? Is there any feedback loop, I guess?
Well, we do have certain channels that we receive feedback from our customers. I have to say it's also quite nice to have. We always like to say also there's like the standard customer, there's the light green customer, there's a dark green customer, and what we've noticed is that with the kind of business model that we have, we also really attract that dark green customer. The ones that really take the time to read the fine print, that take the time to give you input on what you're doing or question the things that you're doing. You know, alone through this webinar or through our social media, we receive quite a lot of feedback or critical questions that really help us also guide or question certain parts. Of course, the overall circular business model was kind of created before that feedback came. But when it comes to, you know, details and how we want to move forward, we definitely also take that into account. And more specifically, when it comes to, how can we improve on certain things, or how can we be, in line with developments. So I mean, those are two channels. Apart from that, we also have our ambassador program, where people can sign up, and there we sometimes also ask questions to the customers about certain things, or we ask what do they want to know more about. So for example, we have a digital product passport, so people can scan a QR code and find out information. We asked what kind of information they find relevant here, or when we go to visit one of our factories, well, one of our partner factories, I have to say, they're not owned by us. But when we go to one of those factories, we also ask our ambassadors what kind of questions would they like to ask. Things like that. We do try to keep a feedback loop there, or opportunities for input.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. It's great to hear. Thanks.
So do circular economy approaches affect the value chain of the firm, like suppliers, competitors, downstream partners? If yes, how? Like, Yeah. Do you have a positive influence on downstream partners, for example? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we see is that the way we work definitely has a good influence on, or has a positive influence on the partners that we work with. Yeah, I think that starts for us with having a short and transparent supply chain, and having quite trusting relationships that we also foster with all of our partners. I think alone the fact that we know of all the partners that we have and kind of are able to foster those relationships at all is already quite a contrast. We see so many brands that don't even know where their product comes from or who the different partners are that were involved in the making of that product. So for us, it was very important to consciously choose the partners that we work with, be able to communicate who they are, and then have a very trusting but also respectful relationship with them. So in that sense, I'm not sure if that's particularly because of the circular business model that we have. I think it's more a general way of working. So I'm not sure if you can put it back to the circularity, but overall, the way we work, we do see that it has a positive influence. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Sorry, I need to have another one on the consumers, because I think there's like a big thing for me around, like as you said, and I really like that terminology. Never heard about the dark green customers and like the larger green ones. But like from your perspective, do you believe in general? So maybe we can group this a little bit. Do you think that general like consumers are mature enough to buy into like a circular business model? And with that, I mean, you are, you're having the renting or the buying of the jeans, right? You probably analyze numbers of how many people buy and how many buy in this rental scheme. I think it's 9 euros per month or something. So I guess informed through that numbers in terms of like what percentage is going for what. Do you think people are mature enough to have these responsibility or like to have like a connection with you as a company after post-purchase? I guess why I'm asking this question is through my research, I feel really that people still love to own. They still love to own, like they pay, I don't know, they're 140 euros and they go away with their jeans and super happy. So I think, I'm just really interested if you believe that in general speaking, the consumers you attract, are they mature enough to buy into this circular system? And then I guess the second part of the question is, in general, consumers, not necessarily just mud jeans, customers, are they mature enough to buy into that? Which might be
okay, so green or not green at all. First question is regarded to ours, and then second general.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that would be good because I think your answer will vary quite a lot just in terms of what you said already.
Okay. Yeah. So I think overall, the way we perceive it is that people are very much interested and willing to engage with the topic of sustainability when it comes to fashion. I think there is no customer that says, I want an unsustainable product. I think overall, sometimes it's perceived as this evil thing. I think everybody wants to have a positive influence with what they do overall, but you can't expect every customer to take the time or have the knowledge of these topics to fully invest in that. So it's the industry's responsibility to make it simple, to make it true what you're claiming, and have kind of not this greenwashing way of customers not being able to differentiate between those things. But maybe I'm going off topic here a little bit. When it comes to do they want to engage afterwards, or do they want to go beyond that typical owning? Especially when we started the company, I think that was one of the reasons for our success. It's perhaps a certain type of customer, but that we're definitely attracted to this type of business model, wanting to try new things. Again, those are maybe more the type of people that have this as one of their interests to engage with the products that they own or use. But of course, the wider consumer, I think, especially, at the start, it was, I think, for us, 50-50 leasers and buyers. And don't nail me down on the number, but more or less. Yeah, that's because, again, we attracted that attention because of this kind of special business model. We do see that becoming a little bit less or more buyers because, not everybody is willing to lease. But, when it also comes to the interaction of sending back the jeans after you wore them, for example, we also notice people love the principle of that, the concept of that, at least the mud jeans customer, but you have to do it in a way that's, again, interesting for them and that's easy enough. So the way it works for us, for example, is if a customer is in the checkout of buying a new mud jeans, we also have at the checkout an option of, do you want to return an old jeans? And then they get a 10. Any jeans, mud jeans, any jeans. And then when it comes to other brands, at least 96% cotton they have to be, but in theory, yes, any jeans. But kind of making it that simple tick at the checkout box, you receive a €10 discount. So you have that incentive. And then they can use the return label that comes with any order that you usually also order. You can send back either return, exchange, together with the old jeans that you want to recycle. So making it easy, making it fun, and giving them some kind of incentive to do it. I think that approach is possible, and that's what makes it feasible for the customers to actually engage in that kind of approach. So I think, I don't know. I don't think it's a matter of maturity of the customer. I think it's about how you approach that concept as a brand. So I think that applies to the general consumer also. It depends on how you frame it.
Would you say, just as a follow-on question, like obviously, we could argue that when you go to H&M buy jeans, €40, 20 years, I don't even know, that's significant price difference. Would you say that plays into that, because that willingness, does that maturity of it, to actually understanding, hey, if I actually look through the value chain and everyone has their fair share and it's produced environmentally friendly, social standards and so forth, that is the cost that jeans should cost. Do you think that plays a big role? And do you think that narrative needs to change to attract more or other kind of customers?
Definitely, I think, it comes down again to that idea of fair pricing. And I think that there's definitely a lack of awareness of what that means when it comes to denim. The 40 whatever euros that you're paying at fast fashion brands, it's just, there is no way that everybody in that chain is getting paid fairly. So that's definitely part of it, but I do think it's unfair to put that responsibility on the customer, or to say that everybody has to be able to afford that higher price. I think then it comes down to, again, you can encourage secondhand buying, but also that's one of the reasons why we have our lease a jeans concept, because essentially what it is a kind of rates payment, right? So we think it makes this approach more accessible. You have the fair pricing element, but you're not expecting people to pay 130 euros in one go, which is a lot of money for one item of clothing, of course. So I think finding different ways to still pay a fair price is definitely needed.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Okay. Which role do digital technology play related to your business approach, like IoT or big data, blockchain, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, virtual reality?
Well, I think we're a small brand. We're not as digitized as some bigger brands maybe. We do work with blockchain, for example, when it comes to our digital product passport and looking at so yeah, there, for example, we have through blockchain our different supply chains or production journeys, let's say, of it's the information basically on how the product was produced and by whom and in which locations. So for that, we do work with blockchain. Yeah, beyond that, we're also looking into when it comes to more the design element and digitizing that. But do you mean, is this specific for circular business models now, or just in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
In general, yeah.
Okay. Well, when it comes to circularity, at the moment we're not super reliant on that because we have this established supply chain of taking back the jeans and making sure that those get recycled. We do work with the blockchain to transparently communicate that information. But there's also some things in the pipeline, for example, when it comes to identifying the quality of a jeans that you receive back, right? Some people also send back jeans that are still in a good quality. We do at the moment already do these, personal checks and non-digital checks of the jeans that come back to see if they are for a secondhand collection or for recycling. But that is something that can be digitalized, of course, and that's also something we're looking at. So kind of, being able to assess the quality level of the product that you receive back.
Does the technology advancement have influence on the film performance?
Well, it could have in the future. It could make things more efficient, yeah.
Yeah, also how would you describe the relation between the digital advancement and the performance? Yeah, like in the last 5 years, like is there any like the last companies I spoke, they said it was not possible, their business model, because the technology was not there. And is it like the same way with you? Like the technology?
Yeah, I mean, from that element, one of our goals is the Road to 100 project. So far, for example, it hasn't technically been feasible to create a jeans from 100% post-consumer recycled content. So there were technical barriers there, and we had a proof of concept last year, and that's something where we still definitely need increased capacities when it comes to technological advancement. So looking at, for example, just speaking at the fashion industry also as a whole, efficiently recycling polycotton fibers, for example. So lots of fabrics are a mix of synthetics and natural materials. And from what I know so far, it's not really possible to recycle both things efficiently. You have to kind of break one of the two, or you have a lot of waste in the process. So recycling those kinds of fabrics is one thing. And then the other is reaching those 100% post-consumer recycled fabrics. For that, there needs to be still even more technical advancements, for sure. I would say at the moment it hasn't had that big of an impact on our business model, but we do expect that to happen also in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
So you invest in some technological advancement?
Well, not us directly, but we work with partners that expect to see those advancements happening. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, so I think based on your sustainability report, obviously you have a lot of strategies, a lot of circular strategies. You upcycle, you pair, in terms of your productions, the designs and everything, to kind of like design out waste. So I guess all of those are like circular principles. when it comes to like if I send my jeans back now to you, you kind of like talked about it already. You do sense checks, so you wouldn't say, I don't know, this is a perfect jean, we should shred it into material and make a new one out of it. Actually, it's more energy intensive to do that. Actually, you could just stitch it up and sell it secondhand, or actually it's perfectly fine, we can just sell it on without doing anything. So that's something you do in terms of like, there is a hierarchy of quality versus what you do with it and what circular strategy you kind of like push it through. Is that correct to say?
Yeah. Yeah, so to give you a little bit of insight into that, so yeah, we receive the jeans back and they arrive at our logistics partner that also handles our returns, our normal returns and exchanges, for example. But they are also trained to differentiate kind of between what we call vintage, so the secondhand, which is the good quality where either very minor repairs have to be done or that are just perfect. And actually there's a number of those, or recycling. So there's certain things to look out for in a jeans, like if the fabric in the Netherlands, for example, people bike a lot with their jeans and it makes the fabric very thin where the bike saddle is, things like that. Yeah, we recycle those because it would take a lot of input to make those wearable again. So yeah, we differentiate between those things at our logistics partner, and then we always, they're close by to us, so we collect the secondhand jeans from them. We do another check at our office with those. Some then have to go to recycling after all. But yeah, for those that are still good, we keep them in our secondhand collection. We do have plans for that coming up, which I can't share yet, but yeah, we're also working on how do we deal with those jeans. Yeah.
Awesome. Exciting.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Is there an influence of the business model innovation or transformation on the firm performance, like economic, ecologic, or social perspective? If yes, how can you describe this influence?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that or say?
Yeah, no problem. Is there an influence of the business model innovation or transformation? So you have business model innovation or transformation that has an impact on the firm performance?
Well, yeah, our business model is a circular business model, and the innovation that we have is kind of the way we function. And so without that, our company wouldn't exist. So in that sense, there's kind of that direct relationship between the innovation and our firm performance. Yeah, another example could be, when we have innovations such as yeah, foam dyeing, or if we look at the Road to 100 project and more specific product related innovations. Of course, there's also always a positive influence because of, yeah, you get, of course, more attention from the media also if you have more innovations. And there are definitely also customers that appreciate those, yeah, those types of innovations. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just picking on that, I mean, I saw some KPIs on your website, 2025, I think, and one of them is 100% circularity, if I recall it correctly. Is that the same as your Road to 100 project? Is it like, how would you measure, or like, how do you define 100%? How do you measure success? Is it 100% like that 100% circular product? Like, is it, just if you could give a bit more context on that, especially that KPI, that 100% circularity.
Yeah, so one of those points is the Road to 100 project, but that's kind of independent of that, because we think, at least in our definition of circularity, you can have a 100% circular fabric even if it's not made from 100% post-consumer. So the way, maybe we start there. So the way we define circularity here is that all of the elements of the product can be recycled or reused afterwards. Of course, we are already quite far in that journey, but there's still certain things that aren't possible. So for example, when it comes to certain bits of the jeans, you still have to cut out, for example, before recycling, right? Or it was also a journey for us of how do we design buttons in a way that they can be efficiently cut out of or removed. So that's something we want to work on. We want to have removable buttons so that the fabric around that isn't wasted. When it comes to zippers, for example, they're just not recyclable at this point. Of course, we also have jeans with buttons, and that's also one of the reasons it's just more recyclable. But customers want zippers, and so you can't design a product that nobody buys in the end. So you have to use the zippers, unfortunately. So for example, when it comes to zippers, how can we find a way that those are fully reusable or recyclable? So all of the different elements of the jeans is what we mean by that.
Okay.
How do you gain benefits from your offering? Like you have pay systems like subscription or something like this, pay per use? No, you don't have it, right?
So there are two ways. You can either buy your jeans, just a typical purchasing, or you can lease the jeans. And by that, it's essentially it sounds a bit more, well, essentially it's a kind of, how do you say that? Monthly payment of the same price. So let's say you have a 130 euro jeans. And you're paying the same price for the jeans, but you're spreading that over 12 months. So those are the two ways it works. Either you do the monthly payments, which stop after 12 months, or you have the one-off purchasing of the jeans.
Okay. Where do you see your firm in 3 years from now?
I think when it comes to circularity or sustainability, that's what I can speak of here is, like I said, the circularity of our jeans overall, we want to increase that even further. We want to work on a Road to 100 project, so really implementing that 100% post-consumer recycled fabric in our jeans. So really step by step reducing the amount of virgin material that we use even further. And I think from a sustainability standpoint, that's the main thing. So using less virgin materials, making the product more circular, and also continuously just measuring the environmental impact of our products and finding ways to reduce that further. So really finding tangible action points that we can work on with our supply chain partners.
Okay.
I have a last question from my side, which kind of just came up when we talked, so I hope that's okay. The repair service, I just saw it in your sustainability report. For all jeans in the first 12 months, and when you purchase them, you have the free repairs, I think. First of all, are people taking advantage of it? Like, I mean, probably have the supporting numbers to kind of say, okay, is that actually something people do? And how does it work? Like, is that also like, also, are you also covering cost for that? You talked about making it easy and fun. How do you encourage customers to kind of like buy into that circularity concept of repairing?
So the way it works at the moment is there's basically two options. Either customers can send the jeans to us and we repair them through our repair partner here in the Netherlands. Or what we encourage instead actually is that they go to one of their local repair shops, and we reimburse I think up to, don't nail me down on the number, but is the typical repair cost. We reimburse that cost. So we try to encourage people to go through a local repair shop, send us the bill, and we reimburse. Or if they want to, they can send it to us. But we are also working on, like you said, a more fun way there. So we're working at the moment, we have a pilot project in Amsterdam and Utrecht, where we're working with a partner called Mended. And they have, if you know them, maybe, it's basically a platform where you can put what kind of repair you need, also alterations we do through that. So if you have a new purchase, and you need something altered about your product, you can also do that through them. But you use the platform, you bring the product to the repair shop, and they can also send it, well, deliver it by bike back to you. But yeah, we're working on piloting that and seeing if we can implement that also on a wider scale.
That sounds really good. Yeah, I think with these things, it's really about like, you know, how easy is it for me to, you know, kind of like do that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of people use that in terms of like, I don't know, I mean, I hope that people use the local version first. I mean, also in terms of when we talk about carbon footprint and kind of like that kind of piece to it. But do you feel like there's a lot of these requests for it, or do you think people just don't bother? Like, I mean, yeah.
Well, I think it depends. So when it comes to that dark green customer again, I think we have more people taking advantage of it than maybe in, let's say, another fast fashion brand would offer the same thing, because we have a lot of also conscious customers that know the value or the importance of repair. But I wouldn't say it's huge amounts. No. I mean, the idea is, of course, also that you don't have to repair jeans that often. So it's kind of hard to say, because we don't have the data on exactly when this jeans was purchased. At least that's something we're working on gathering now with Mended. But yeah, I think perhaps in our case, more people, because it's that certain type of customer. But we also saw that through the offering with Mended, for example, people were even becoming even more aware of it, or even more willing to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And in terms of the repairs, so I don't know if I would, you know, like if, I don't know, the zipper, you know, like is stuck, you know, that's clearly like a fault of, you know, the zipper, is not like necessarily my fault, but then I don't know, I fall from my bike and I've, you know, ripped the whole jeans off. Like, is everything covered under that repair, or is it just like minor repairs which have like with a defect of it? Like, how can I imagine that? Like, do you have a screening of like what you pay for?
Yeah, I mean, the details of that I would have to also check then with
okay,
the responsible team there, but I know that we have a certain, like I said, like a maximum fee of what we cover. Yeah. So if the product is really needs very extensive repairs that are, you know, they can easily cost 50 euros or something like that, that's not something we cover then. Okay. We do generally also ask for an image of the damage before people send it to us, at least. So when it comes to their local repair, we have that maximum fee, and when it comes to them sending it to us, we ask for an assessment of that so that we can see also whether it's worth them sending it in or if it's not repairable.
Okay, yeah, makes complete sense. Awesome, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Cindy, do you have maybe one last question before we wrap things up?
I don't have any question anymore.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Then we got through all of them.
I feel we're really privileged today. Just the two of us got through all the questions.
Yeah, no, that's great, because sometimes we have quite a big group and then it becomes a bit harder. But in that case, I'm glad we got all of them covered. And yeah, well, thank you for being here. Thanks for, you know, also your interest in mud jeans. I wish you all the best for your projects. And yeah, I hope to hear about your projects when they're done.
100%.